Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to episode 36 of Celebrity Customer Experience, Riffs with Jill Raff, where we riff on anything and everything from EX to CX, from the inside out, from employee experience and customer experience, because I am truly obsessed with employee experience creating outstanding customer experience. And I feel that every customer deserves to have the same attention and treatment as a celebrity. I believe your business, your restaurant can increase revenue while engaging committed and loyal employees and customers. And it all begins from the inside, which is why my proprietary process is called the Inside Out Framework, EX to CX, because I guarantee you, outstanding employee experience will produce extraordinary customer experience. So why do I believe this? Why am I so driven and obsessed with this? Because my parents and grandparents were early McDonald's owner operators. Their first McDonald's store was number 150, opened in March of 1959 in Ocala, Florida. McDonald's was the golden standard of the restaurant industry at that time. And sadly, today, with so many brands, so many experiences that we have, I think have lost the connections to their people, the connections created from owners and managers being hands-on and involved, engaged with their people, doing whatever it takes to show their people that they care for them and they're creating those relationships with their employees and with their customers. Due to my upbringing in the McFamily and careers across multiple industries from fashion to restaurant and real estate spanning 7 countries, the golden thread throughout all of this was something I learned as a young child from Ray Kroc, whose motto was QSC and V, quality, service, cleanliness, and value. So naturally, I now teach the ABCs of QSC and V. With this core foundation of work that I've done and other work across industries, I inherently understand what stellar CX means because it's truly in my DNA. And great CX starts with having the right people aligned in your work family. And on this point, I am super excited for today's guest in this episode. But before I introduce her, I just want to remind everyone, if you're watching live, thank you. And please join in the conversation. You can be a part of this conversation with her, Hollis, and myself. And feel free to engage directly. We'll put your comments up on the screen and talk about those. And if you're watching the replay, fabulous. Also, leave a comment, tag each of us so that we'll be sure to see it and engage with you after. So I'm really excited to welcome our guest today, Hollis Roberts, a career strategist, co-owner of Career Design, and an identity capital enthusiast. Hollis believes everyone is an entrepreneur of their own career and helps people create their career identity that not just looks good, but also feels good. I love that. Hollis, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, I'm so glad I'm on here with you today. So thanks for having me, Jill.
Of course, of course. So first of all, I love the concept, the idea of identity capital, but it's definitely not a common one. So let's start there. And can you please just explain to everyone what does that mean? What is identity capital?
Sure. So it's really pretty simple. Identity capital is a collection of your character assets. So it's a collection of who you are and how you invest in yourself, and when it relates to career, how you've been investing in your career. So when you think about financial assets, you think about, financial capital, you think about the assets that you own and those deposits that you make, perhaps daily or monthly, that help you to invest in the future. So it's the same thing when it comes to you and your identity. So it's about those daily or monthly deposits that you're making, those little decisions, the classes you're taking, the way that you interact with other people that end up being your brand identity.
I love that you mentioned deposits. It reminds me of and makes me think about a story that Zig Ziglar told. I don't know if you're familiar with that, and I'm sure you're familiar with Zig Ziglar, amazing speaker, inspirational motivator. But he talks about the importance of our mindset and our own self-talk, and that when we make deposits, whether positive or negative, we're constantly making those deposits with each thought that we have. And therefore, when we want to make a withdrawal, the only thing that we can withdraw from is what's been deposited. And so if we're putting all these negative thoughts and ideas and putting ourselves down, when you need to pull out something to have confidence and to move forward with, it's really difficult because you don't have anything positive in the bank to pull from. And so the opposite, of course, which is what we want to strive for, would be, being able to put all these great deposits and recognizing all of our values, our characteristics, the things that we have to benefit ourselves and others, and then, play on that. Is that what I hear you saying?
Exactly. That's exactly it. I think a lot of us, we are stuck in our day-to-day grind and making sure we're getting the tasks done, and we get stressed out, and we just don't really stop until we're ready to look for a new job to think about how is the way that I'm interacting with people, or the coursework that I'm taking, the people like you that I'm following to get new information about my industry. How is all of that adding up to me and who I am and what I bring to organizations?
Mm.
We stop when we're looking for a job because we need to put together that resume. And, I work with a lot of folks who are looking for new work. And it's in that time that they go, oh my gosh, for the last 5 or 10 years, I haven't been investing in myself. And, there's a gap between who I want to be and who I am right now. We can even not enjoy our workplace or job and be showing up in a way that doesn't speak to who we want to be as well. So I am really passionate about helping people throughout all their career, not just when they're looking for a job, to stop and take this self-inventory of how am I showing up, just like brands would do, right? We've talked to brands about doing this very same thing and knowing not just who you want to be, but how are the experiences throughout every interaction with the customer, speaking about our brand. And it's the same thing with ourselves.
Yeah. I love you talked about, investing in yourself and really identifying all of that in advance before you even bring in the business piece. So what are some of the ideas, some of the things that you do that you suggest for people to help them in that piece before it's even something that's applied to a potential job?
Yeah, I think there's a couple questions that you can ask yourself that really help you own your career and know the value that you bring into every interaction with people. So first is, who am I and what is it that I do best? Oftentimes we look at a job description that our employer gives us and we just try to meet their criteria, but we miss a huge part, which is there's some things that we do phenomenally well that makes us really unique and that we can bring this added value into our daily work. And just taking inventory of what are my strengths, what skills do I feel energized doing, and do I do really well? That's a really big first step. And the second is, what do I want for my career? So I think one thing that we forget when we do find a job is it's a two-way contract. So you're being hired to perform a service for this organization, but whether you're saying it or not, there's something that you're looking for. So when we don't stop to identify what it is that we really want, then there can be a gap of us feeling satisfied at work. So it's really important that we're doing our part in knowing who we are so that we can have a great employee experience. We've got to bring that part to the table. So that's another big thing to ask. What do I even want? So I think those are the two things to begin with. Who am I really at my core, and what is it that I want?
Yeah, I love that. Especially playing off of something you mentioned, I think it's really important that everyone understand that when we go to apply for a job, it is a two-way street. I think the traditional model, especially in larger companies and in corporations, is that we go there almost like we're this little person and we're begging and hoping they choose us, right? And it's always a one-sided thing. People, I think they just perceive it that way because that's the way it's been traditionally done. But I think the good news is that today, with the empowerment of people and the recognition of how important the people are in our businesses, that we need to stop and say it's not a one-way street. I mean, I feel very blessed and fortunate that I was raised in such a way, somewhere between my parents or just people who guided me on interviewing. I don't even remember. It's been so long. But one of the things that was always taught to me, that when I went into an interview, I came prepared with questions about that company. And I viewed it as I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. And I think that, tell me what you think, but I think that companies, and I know when I always look to hire people to work on my team, I feel more strongly towards someone who's taken the time to look into what my business is, look into what my message is, what is it that I'm putting out, what are my needs? Maybe they even can proactively think, what can I do, knowing my own strengths? How can I make this company more productive, make them better, serve with whichever function I plan on fulfilling? How can I bring value to them? And how do I show them that through my questions, I'm already thinking a step ahead and that I'm actually invested in the success of the company? And I'm looking to see, am I the right fit? Is this a place that I can give my most value? So I would recommend to people to really think about, when you go on an interview, uh, take an assessment of, and maybe make some notes of not only your strengths and your values and what you want from this particular company, but what are some of the things that the company's doing, so you can show them, I'm interested in to know what you're about. And maybe you're not the right fit for me. And so, without, you don't want to come off cocky, but you want to come off confident and strong, so that they see you've done your homework, you know what their company's about, and you're not a shoo-in, that they recognize they're being interviewed as well. And I think psychologically, there's something about human nature. When someone feels there's that bit of a chase and there's a possibility you might not choose them, they're going to want you even more. I mean, what do you think about that?
Oh, I completely agree. I am so in awe, Jill, that you got that advice at the beginning of your career, because I hear from so many folks, and I think I might have been one of them, who we learn how to, or we're taught for the test, I guess I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So we're taught how to win an interview, but not how to find a job we actually will enjoy and thrive in. So we learn how to ask questions that make us seem intelligent, instead of asking questions that help us get answers to the questions we really have. And that's insanely intelligent. And it shows emotional intelligence, that you know what you want and how to ask questions. So it's almost like a deeper level of connection you can get with an organization when you learn how to ask great questions, not just questions that seem a certain way.
You touched on a great point, which is very sad. I think about the education in our country, is that so many are truly taught to the test. And that's a perfect analogy. And it does, it plays out in every part of our life, and sadly into our professional life once we're out of school. And it doesn't teach you to think on your own, right? To be proactive and to be a thought leader and to be a problem solver. It teaches you to, how do I, fix, check that box or fill in that bucket or get this particular thing, but it's very narrow focused.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think in addition to that, we're told a lot about what good jobs are and a good career path, and you're doing the right things when you have this straight upward trajectory. I mean, when you actually look at careers, it rarely works out that way, where it's just like a linear, you just climbed a ladder anymore. It's much more dynamic these days. But we're taught the way things are supposed to be. And we forget that when we're playing to our strength and doing something that's really energizing and we love, that's a key part to finding success in our careers, not picking something that just makes a lot of money, or that sounds good on paper. It's really something that matches who you are at your core. That's a key element there. And you know what? Employers can feel it too, when you are on the job at your work and you are doing work that is fulfilling to you. You are bringing a different level of energy. You're excited about asking for a stretch project or for an opportunity. And so I think if you're in a spot where you're wondering why you keep getting passed up, pay attention to the energy you're bringing, and it may have something to do with the fact that it's not playing to your strengths or your skills, or you're in a spot where you have forgotten that you own your career. You don't have to wait for somebody to give you a promotion to decide to invest in yourself and get yourself to a place that you're ready.
Yeah, excellent. Gosh, love very visual. I love the image of, and I don't can't think of the name of the book, but I can picture like the squiggly lines that, our path in our lives, our journey, both professionally and personal, are not that linear straight path. And it's a big squiggly line and it's all over the place. And thank God for that. How boring would life be if it's just you're always in the same path and you're always in the same company and you're always kind of doing that one thing? So it makes me think of yesterday, I heard David Kong, who is the CEO of Best Western. And I heard him speaking yesterday on a live cast. And it was really interesting because he started out, he said, he grew up in Hong Kong and was influenced by going to restaurants in hotels. And so that's what kind of got him interested. And he started out like working as a dishwasher in a hotel restaurant, something, and then he got promoted to be a server. And this man is doing huge things in the hospitality industry and has taken in 4 years their one single concept and created 17 more brands. They have 18 brands under the Best Western concept and are just evolving and creating and innovating even in this year alone. It's so inspiring. And what he said was, the way he got to be the CEO and the way he understood all the different, in corporate speak, the silos, right? All the different compartments and things that make up a successful hotel in this case, was the fact that when things went wrong, like in this year with the pandemic, when there was a downturn or he had bad luck, he didn't sit and wallow. Or sometimes he even took jobs in a different position completely because he's like, you know what, this is a way to better myself. And in the meantime, I'm going to develop and educate myself in this other area that maybe or maybe not would parlay back later on into this. And so he kind of had a vision. He didn't say he had a vision to be the CEO, but clearly he saw that whatever he did, was leading him to being a better person, to being more capable, to being his curiosity. And I think that was the thing. To me, I in my comments, I wrote something about curiosity. And then like a minute later, he talked about being intellectually curious. And I think that's really what it's about. That he even said he took job demotions that otherwise would have, he had an opportunity to get a lot more pay and have many more, a hotel with larger, more room counts, which is the way things are kind of judged. But he said he knew that he would grow more by doing that. And at the end of the day, you have to take all these twists and turns and do these things that make you a more interesting and more equipped person so that ultimately you can get that best job. You don't jump from A to Z, and
That's amazing. And you know what is important about what you said is he had a clear idea of what he hoped to accomplish. So a lot of it came from not saying, I'm going to have a certain title. It's that I have a certain vision and I can learn in so many different ways and take on so many different roles that can really create a phenomenal foundation to get me where I want to go. And when you know what you want, it's so much easier to create these strategies. Otherwise, you're going after somebody else's version of what you're supposed to be doing. That
exactly.
clarity that's really, really crucial. And it's important for companies too. It's really scary to me to think of how many folks are getting hired who don't really know what they want. They want growth because it makes them feel good to get the job title.
Mm-hmm.
They get there and it's not as fulfilling. And we bring all that baggage in when we don't really know who we are, why we're doing what we're doing, and what it is that we want. So it really is important for both parties that we know who we are and what we want out of our career.
Absolutely. And then to have those, when you know who you are as a company, as a brand, and as an individual to be hired,
Mhm.
You have to know what you have to offer. Then you're both setting those expectations. And when those expectations on both sides are clearly defined in the beginning, and you reach an agreement even before setting foot on that property for your first day of work, to me, I think that's a really important part of creating that outstanding employee experience, is to make sure that there's 100% clarity on those expectations
Yeah.
and who you are. And you can't have expectations unless you know confidently kind of who you are and what you're bringing to the table, right?
Exactly. Otherwise, there still are expectations. We just don't know what they are and how to verbalize what it is that we want. And when you break it down and you think of the relationship between yourself and your employer, there's a lot of similarities between a brand and their customers. And so if we're not sure where to start, one thing is to just think of yourself as the product. And if this was a brand and you were creating a mission and a vision and a strategy, a CX strategy, how would that look? And
Mhm.
oftentimes we can deploy our learnings of our field to create a successful career path for ourselves. So we have a lot more tools than we think, and thinking of yourself as a product is a great first start.
Hmm. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I found it to be, I have a marketing background, and I oftentimes stop and do that for myself as well and think, I'm really in the business of marketing myself no matter what job I have throughout my career,
Mhm.
and deploy the marketing skills that I have to decide how am I going to get my name out there? What are the people who would purchase my services, and even when I was within an organization, the people who would hire me, what is it that they're looking for and what is it that I do best, and how can I share who I am in a way that is compelling. And
Mhm.
I think we all have those opportunities to bring in our own skill set to help our own careers.
Yeah, definitely. I love all that. So, one thing, thinking about companies, where they're positioned in all of this. And obviously, to have that great employee experience, the companies have to have buy-in. They have to see the value in their team member, right? For who they are and what they're bringing. What are some ideas that you have for companies to be able to step into that role of really seeing their people and their value?
Yeah. Well, I think one key consideration for companies is how can you help employees to be more self-aware about who they are and what they want. There's a lot of fear around doing that, thinking, oh, they're going to learn about who they are and they're going to leave, right? They're going to decide they want
Mhm.
something else. But really, when employees step up to the table and they say, I really want to know what my team wants and how to create a great experience, if people don't know what to say, or they're saying things that are not truly aligned with what they want, then
Mhm.
a company can't achieve their real goals because we're not having a two-way conversation that's based on real facts. So I think the first thing to consider is how can you invest in uh, helping your team really understand what it is that they want out of their career and how they can grow internally. Another thought I have on that is, companies can r- start to, in their annual or biannual assessments that they're doing of their team, the feedback that they're giving is to share what they're seeing of an employee. So, not just are you doing your job duties, but what are you noticing about them? Are there strengths that you're seeing? How are they showing up in a unique way on their team? And when you start to create uh, leadership who are noticers and see how each person is unique, then people's individuality starts being recognized and encouraged. And you start seeing more of that. And there's a value placed on each person bringing something very special to the team.
Mhm. So just a couple things, a couple thoughts triggered from that. One, how do you get a company who isn't there yet in their thinking and their mindset to buy into that? And then, the second part of that is, I think what you said is very accurate, that most companies do an annual assessment of their, surveys of their people. If they're lucky, if people are lucky, then it's biannual. I personally think and part of my training is helping companies set up and establish many more touch points along the way, even on a daily basis, if possible. And that there's a lot of ways to do that. But I'm just curious which, touch on those points if you could kind of shed some light on, a company, if they're not there yet in their mindset, how do we get companies to understand that this is really important? And secondly, what are your thoughts around the once a year, twice a year surveys to get that input? And
That's a
excuse
great
my dog in the
question.
background.
I'm, they're really such great questions. First, to answer your first question about how do you get companies to really believe in this, I think it takes each person standing up and doing that for themselves and their team. So from one angle, it really starts with the top. So
Mhm.
top leadership needs to model that for the rest of their team by being noticers and understanding themselves and what it is that they want and using that language daily. So when you start to deploy it at a small level and see it successful,
Mhm.
other people see it as well, then that's really how it can infiltrate a company. On the other hand, from my perspective, I really believe everybody can own their own career too. So it can happen in reverse as well. So it takes everybody stepping up from the table. So if I show up tomorrow and decide that I'm going to share something that I noticed about myself and my teammates, and I start being a noticer, and that's encouraged, and my team performs better when we're using our strengths, then that can be encouraged and start um, infiltrating the company from the other direction. So I think we all can play a part in this. At the end of the day, for it to truly infiltrate a company, it takes buy-in from top leadership. So I think investing at that level for them to understand it and deploy it is really important. And I am with you on reviews. They are really misused because they're tied to raises. And I understand there has to be a certain point where that happens, where there is a financial, raises of some sort. However, it gets mucky because it's, am I doing well? Here's money. When in reality, feedback is essential to the team doing well. And when you think of it, again, if I think of it from a brand perspective, we don't ask our customers to only give us feedback one time a year on how we're doing. So
Yeah,
why do we deploy that model internally is a little intriguing to me to say
excellent.
we're not really walking our walk on the other side of the coin. So
Mm,
when you just think of what do you want from your customers, that's probably the same thing that your team members want. So
yeah.
deploy the strategy
Wow.
internally.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think you're right. To me, EX and CX are two sides of the same coin, and they are important. And I think it's critical for companies, people who are running them and managing them, to look at their employees as their customers, because they are, in fact, your first line customer. And so it's how you treat them, how you take care of your first line customers will make how they take care of your end paying customers. And I think that's really great advice, and something that I concur with, that we need to be looking at our inside, our people, from the inside out, and really treat them the same as if they are paying customers, because without them, you will not have paying customers. You'll have no one to serve your customers. So that's really pretty important.
I know, I completely agree. And I want to bring something up too is that I love your concept of inside out model for companies. And I'm going to keep using this analogy because I think as humans, we have the same thing, right? It starts inside out of who are we on our inside and how are we treating our teammates? And, that ends up in the workplace and um, touching our customers. So I think I've told you this one time before, but I have this vision that there's the EX to CX model that I 100% am on board with. And I think if you put yourself in that model as well as a human being, that it's almost this UX. So YOU, not the UX, but UX is really the start to that whole model. It's almost UX to EX to CX. So that's the way
100%.
we can put ourselves into the model.
I love that. Love that. Yeah, a nice play on the UX from user experience, but really YOU because yeah, it does start with you, right? And if you think about it again, triggers another Zig Ziglar story where it's a whole long story. I won't go into the whole thing, but paraphrase the idea behind it is that we come wherever we go, whether we're going to something socially or we're showing up at work. But obviously, we're talking about work, and it's something we spend most of our hours at work. Whether today it's behind the computer at home or whether we're there in person, it doesn't matter. Either way, we're bringing our energy, we're bringing our mood, our whatever's happened to us before, whether good or bad, we're bringing that with us to the exchange, to the communication, to the nonverbal communication, to every aspect, to our fellow employees and to our customers. And so I think we really have to look at what's going on inside of us every day. And when we start to react a certain way or respond to someone, there's all these different personality types, which again, this just ties in. I just was on a call previously. I'm going to be getting certified in a program called Type Coach. It's an assessment tool. And what I love about it is it really helps break down who you are as a person, and you see how you naturally would respond or how you see the world, how you work in a certain way. And then you're able to compare what your teammate or other managers who are making those decisions, and they do the assessment, and then it really matches them up, and you can see why it's a beautiful connection or why it's really going to cause friction. But it's not just recognizing it, but it gives you tools of how then to create the awareness of what's happening within me. Why am I responding how I am? And the same for them. And now how do we marry those two? How do we, recognize the differences and still yet work together productively? So,
I love that.
that you aspect
can be such a powerful way to give a common language to an organization and a way to talk about what we're noticing with each other and how we can work together. So that sounds like a phenomenal tool.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that, to me, I see the benefits. So I'm excited. Come into February, I'll be able to actually train on that as well. So excited because I just see, with the people part being so important and being my main driver, this just seems so important to be able to help people, give them something tangible to be able to work with.
Yeah, and something I want to call out is there's a moment where you're building some identity capital for yourself because you're investing in yourself to understand this tool, and it also aligns with who you are and what you're about and your vision. And so it's a little deposit into what you believe and what you can offer. So it's a really good example to tie it back in there of identity too.
Oh, thank you. That's a good point. I see. I don't even think of it that way, but you're absolutely right. So another question. I agree 100% that it's really important for companies to recognize their people and employees beyond just an employee who's there collecting a paycheck, or on your side doing what you've asked them to do, and for the employee side there to collect a paycheck. So what are some ways that companies can actually recognize and encourage each of those employees to actually use their strengths on the job?
Great question. I think first is noticing it and acknowledging it and showing them how it's showing up in their daily job. A lot of us are great at things that we don't know make us unique. We think because it comes easy to us that it comes easy to everyone. So when you notice it and show them repeatedly how it's showing up, then someone is more encouraged to use it on a daily basis. So I think one can be, if you have somebody on your team who's maybe quiet, but they're a really great listener, and you notice that they hear things and are able to connect with people on a different level because they're really paying attention and noticing. They might get seen as somebody who's quiet, doesn't speak first in a meeting, and they may not know what a superpower that can be. So when you notice that about them and say, hey, I noticed that you're really quiet and you're a great listener. Like by not speaking first, you're really spending time listening and you bring in phenomenal insights when we're in meetings or a huddle. Then come a week later, you say, "Hey, I missed that, but because you were such a great listener, you picked up on a key thing that nobody else noticed." Now
Mhm.
they're seeing how their strength is showing up in the workplace, and they're more apt to play into that and share the insights that they're hearing because they understand how valuable that is.
I love it. Yeah, that's exactly what I was just talking about with type coach. It's recognizing, and we extrovert types tend to overpower sometimes the introvert types. And with sometimes we just have to learn to shut up, hold the thoughts, and allow the space, the safe space for some of those who it doesn't mean that they don't have ideas or that they're not involved. It's just that they communicate in a different way. So it's a different communication
Yeah.
style.
And when you see that about everyone, it doesn't mean that anybody has to not be themselves. It's that we get to honor that everyone's themselves and start seeing what the unique value is of all the teammates are around us. So that when we sit in a client meeting, we might say, we really need Jill with us because she's extroverted and this is a time where she can truly shine because this client um, loves to build rapport and is communication heavy, like they love communicating. So we get to decide when our teammates are right for a special project based on strengths too, when we know that. And when we call out why, it just further reinforces that too. When we say, we're bringing Jill onto this project because of these traits, then you're going to feel like that is really valued within your organization.
hmm Yeah, it's great. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here for just a minute. Um, Companies today, I think, again, traditionally, people feel like I'm paying the employees to
Mhm.
perform their job and do what they need. Why do I need to be concerned about who they are as a person, or why do I have to now I have to worry about what their needs are? Is it not enough to like we're paying them, they're doing their jobs? Like what are the rewards? Like what's the point of that? So, you know, what's your thought about that for companies who are like, well, we're paying them to do their work. Why do I have to be caught up with all the other things about how they feel? Like it's just too much to deal with.
Yeah, I think that that's not uncommon for people or companies, unfortunately, to have that point of view as well. And what's gotten us into this situation here, where in the end of the day, it's a relationship between an employer and an employee. That's a relationship.
Mhm.
And you have to nurture the relationship. And anytime it's one sided, it's not going to be healthy. So, yes, you are paying your employee to show up. And so, what you're going to get is somebody who shows up and who is there for only the paycheck because that's the value you're putting on what you offer. So if a
Mhm.
company says all I have to offer is a paycheck, then that's the agreement is then I'm just showing up for the money. So when the money isn't good enough or it is not um, fulfilling someone, then there's going to be trouble. So oftentimes that leads to high turnover, a tricky culture where people are not invested or feeling valued. And so, what I would say is think of it like a relationship and know that the goal is that it's long term.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to create an organization where people want to stay and where they're feeling valued, because that's the same thing you'd expect for your customers too, that they're feeling valued and that they are loyal to you, then you have to think, well, then I also have to be loyal in return to everyone, the customer, my employees, and how do I create that? And that's
Mhm.
by deciding that you want to invest in that relationship with your team members. And part of that is noticing who they are and investing in your folks. And that doesn't necessarily mean, I think a lot of times when we hear investing, we think money.
Yeah.
That they better buy courses and pay for them to go back to school. We have this money, but really that can be time, that can be in noticing, that can
Mhm.
be in encouraging them to grow themselves, spending time giving them feedback. I mean, there's a lot of non-financial ways that you can invest in your team on
Yeah.
a daily basis.
I think about some of my early first jobs, the investment that was made in me, I was being paid almost nothing. I was an assistant as a fashion designer.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, I learned so much that my next job, well, I went to Europe, but when I came back from working in Europe as a designer, when I moved back to New York, my next job, like I went to something that was like completely up here because of the investment and all that I learned on that first level, and I was not getting paid very much at all. But when you said in the beginning, I think really makes me think about that we're by only thinking about the fact that, well, I'm paying you, so that should be enough. This is our agreement, is that you're commoditizing your employers. And when you make them a commodity, we all know what happens, right? When you are a commodity and you're like everyone else, they can go work for someone else. Everyone can choose. Everyone has a choice today to work wherever they want or to buy wherever they want. People have choices. And so we have to show them that we care more about you, that it is about that relationship. And that is what will absolutely create the sustainability, increase revenue by having lower turnover and all of those things that you point out
I
so
could
beautifully.
not agree more. I could not agree
Yeah.
more. It really is true, and I think a lot of times we forget that. We really don't spend the time to think about how is my business running, and if it didn't work if as a business model with our customers, then why would it work as a business model internally too? So
Right. People are people. I say people are people first and their customers second. So, taking that, I
Mhm.
think of that as the customer experience, but as I take that now into the inside, into the employee experience, the same expression really applies because ultimately, um, we're all people and you have to talk about to someone as a human being and create that rapport, find out the commonalities, find out what's important to them, and give them an opportunity within their work to shine and value their ideas and implement some of their ideas to show them that we believe in you and you're a part of our success and give them that confidence. And maybe it won't work out, but that's life. All your ideas won't work out either,
Right.
So it's showing that they're a part of the bigger picture. People want to be a part of something bigger and to have a greater impact and make a difference. In fact, statistically, they show that people are willing to work for less money is if they get the satisfaction and if they're engaged and involved, and engaged employees are empowered employees, and the empowered employees is going to be what will create that productivity within your company, because you're going to have a happy, cohesive, and true collaborative team that's going to have each other's backs. So I think that makes a big difference. So I just want
Absolutely. There's
to
two main
yeah,
things that I hear from clients. I just want to bring this up too. There's two
yeah.
main things I hear from clients as they're looking to change jobs or change careers that they're looking for. And one is balance, which probably isn't surprising. And we do a lot of talking about boundaries. Sometimes that's a personal thing and not necessarily always on the company. But the second is to do work that matters.
Mm,
And 9 times out of 10, that a person is not thinking nonprofit. They're thinking doing work that really impacts human beings or solves a challenge for a company. They want to feel like their work matters. So I just wanted to share that is really true. And all of my data that I have shows that those are two main things people are looking for.
I love it. Thank you. Absolutely. Really critical point. So I just want to weave a little bit to an area where, the work that you do and the work that I do really, there's a cross-sectional point, where they weave together, I think, very naturally. Where do you see the transition point? How do you see the flow of the work that you do and the work that I do in EX, and how people can benefit from both of those pieces?
I really find them to be interwoven together. So on two parts. One is that agreement piece that I'm mentioning, that as you're teaching internally to companies on how to create a sound employee experience that really works and drives that customer experience, I feel like I'm working with the human beings on the other side saying, if your company is doing their part, or you're trying to look for a company doing their part, then it's time for you to do yours as well, and know what it is that you want and how you can succeed within the organization, because knowing yourself is important when they're asking the right questions to you. So that's one way. And the second to me is every single person that you're working with who's going to deploy these strategies is a human being themselves. So they have to understand this about themselves as well, so that they can be a part of that within their own organization too.
Yeah, there's definitely that yin and yang, and it's the constant, it kind of brings us full circle with all the elements that we've talked about, that there's a give and take. It's the relationship. It's not a linear path. It's kind of all over. And that's a great way to kind of bring us around. So we've got a little more time. And then that also is a perfect segue into the work that we will be doing together soon. And I'm so super excited. 2021 is going to be an amazing year. I am really excited about the collaboration that we're doing, you and I, and Dennis Wakabayashi and James Dodkins. We are the Experience All-Stars, and we're going to be covering everything EX to CX, kind of like this program, Riffs with Jill Raff, all riffing about everything EX to CX. And I'm really excited because I do think, I remember our first conversation, which wasn't all that long ago. COVID's been amazing for just expediting everything so quickly. I always try to look for the silver lining, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
But, our first conversation, I just remember, feeling so in alignment with everything that you believe in and all the great work that you do to help people just feel in their own skin, right? To see their value and what they are. And if nothing else, even if you didn't take that to the workplace, that's the gift of life. Like, that is so huge. And it's tremendous, the work that you do around that. But then you take that piece and help them, because we all need to have livelihood, right? We all have to apply it. We all have to work, whether we want to or not. But if we love our work, it's not work, right? It's a labor of love. And so I think when you know who you are and you start to recognize all the value that you bring, and you find the right place that can treasure and value who you are for what you're bringing, and have that nice yin yang, that relationship, I think you do that so well and so beautifully. And it just really, I'm just really excited for all that you're going to bring for that. And just want to say I'm really excited about the work that's yet to come, but it is in the progress. And just give a shout out to that and to thank you.
Yes, thank you. I had a similar experience whenever I met with you for the first time too, and thinking, there I love the work that you're doing with companies, because when I teach individuals of how to advocate for themselves and really know how to ask for what they want, which requires knowing what they want.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, we need businesses who are doing the same, who are encouraging that, and who are really passionate about that employee experience and how that can drive a successful business model overall. So when I heard what you were doing, I thought, yes, this is what I've been waiting for, is someone like you doing the work that you're doing. We're working from two sides to really accomplish the same goal. Just everybody wants to show up and feel like they're enough. Businesses want to succeed, humans want to succeed, and we all want to do it in a way that makes us feel fulfilled and really, really successful.
Yeah, 100%. So to that end, how do you work directly to help individuals and companies with this critical foundation?
Absolutely. So I work individually with clients is the first way, is I really work with them to help them figure out what they want and what strengths that they can deploy in order to really find successful work. I also, for people who know that about themselves, help them with their marketing of themselves within their organization, or during a job search, to advocate and find opportunities that align with the career path that they are desiring for themselves. And I also consult and speak on this topic too, because it's really important that we all have a common language that we're using and that we understand that this is a necessity within our organizations. And the more we're showing up and honoring this in ourselves and with others, then the more this becomes a natural part of the workplace.
I love it. And it is so important. It really is really critical for foundation. I've got on the screen so everyone can see that you're the co-owner of Career Design, and there's your website. It's www.career-design.com. So I guess, the next question is, how would one find you to connect with you? And I'm also going to put here your email address on the screen. And then I also have your your social media connections. So I'm going to just run that under as a little ticker going around. So people, if you can just let
Awesome.
people know.
That's the best way to find me is through my website. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you search Hollis Roberts, there aren't very many of us. You can find me pretty quickly. And I'm always available by email. I love to help folks, regardless of whether we do long-term work together or not. I enjoy being a resource for anyone looking to feel fulfilled in their work and understand how to advocate for what they want next.
Love it. Thank you. With all that said, we talked a lot about, walking your walk and talking your talk. And um, that's something that's really important to me as well. And so one of the key things that I always stress and teach in my trainings and my live casts and everything that I do is to ask questions. You've got to ask and really be open and hear, not just hear, but really listen to the responses. So just putting that out there to everyone who watches this replay, please ask questions. We want to hear what your thoughts are around it, answer any questions, be a resource. And so we'd love to hear your thoughts and your ideas, your challenges. One thing that you mentioned earlier on, which is such an important part of growth, is the stretch, right? To find things, your challenges that stretch you.
Yes.
And I'm a big component of that, and have put myself in situations that were very uncomfortable many times, but wow, the growth and the stretch that happened as a result. So I'm going to put my information up here because I always forget to put my contact information up. Let's see here. Hold on. I'm going to take this off the ticker and just put up. So obviously, my here on LinkedIn and Facebook, there are some groups tags that are going underneath there, which you can see. And then also just my contact information. Gosh, there we go. Okay. Finding all these different ones.
I know.
But anyway, so, really, I just encourage everyone to reach out to discuss really the joint responsibilities and appreciation in order to be a part of a team, a true team, and to contribute and to work towards those mutually shared goals and objectives in order to really develop outstanding employee experience, so that outstanding customer experience will naturally be the end result of that. And I think that's where what we do really is in alignment and so important. Everyone's focused on the CX, and of course CX is crucial. But to make sure that that happens, we definitely want to start with great EX and those relationships. And you've just shared so much and really a lot of great ideas. So I encourage everyone to please definitely reach out to Hollis, reach out to me. Stay tuned for Q1, first quarter next year, for our course, our program that we're going to be offering, and more great things to come from Hollis for sure. And stay tuned next week. We're going to start running into the holiday season. And so I will only be, it'll probably just be me, very quick, some bases, but I will have a guest starting again January 7th. So stay tuned. Oh, it looks like I lost Hollis. Are you there, Hollis? Well, her information's still on the screen. I lost her picture for some reason. So anyway, we're saying goodbye for now, and thank you for joining me. Thank y'all for joining both of us. And we look forward to seeing you again here at Celebrity Customer Experience next week. Thank you so much. And stay tuned for more great things.